All right, welcome in everybody. This is episode 7 of You're Not Terribly Important to Me. Um, Probably should have changed my it's fine. I had the opportunity. It's fine. Everybody knows what my Twitter is, so that's perfect. That's totally what I meant. So it's all good. Uh Anyway, welcome in. Still kind of getting my podcast together. I know I need an intro and an outro and a bunch of other things probably so that it doesn't seem so haggard, but it's fine. I'm trying. That's what Are you? Are you really trying? Okay. I don't know. Probably not. So welcome in. I wasn't really planning on doing a stream this week. I've been kind of a little busy in my personal life. Started a new job this week, and that's kind of been my main focus. So but look, I'll be completely honest with you. When I heard about this movie, when I heard Civil War, what it was about, even before the trailer came out, even before really, I really had a concrete idea of what it was going to be. The idea of a dystopian sci-fi movie, something, could be next year, could be 5 years from now. Basically the not too distant future, this secessionist civil war happens between, the US government under this 3-term fascist authoritarian president who, wields power with an iron fist, and there are these different factions that have broken off and are resisting the United States government. And just from that alone, it's like I am so excited to see potentially where this could go. Please, and then to her, it's Alex Garland. It's the guy who did Ex Machina. It's the guy who did, um, you know, 28 Days Later. Which I just remembered. I completely forgot about that. He did Annihilation, which I hated. He did Men, which I did not really like either. He's kind of been a little cold recently. I know that he had a TV show on FX called Devs, that a lot of people really liked, but I never gave it a chance. I'm really bad with TV. I'm such a cinema snob that I really like. It has to get like a lot of attention, or a lot of people have to tell me, this is really good, or you should check out this time and time and time again, because I'm really stubborn when it comes. And part of that's me being a snob. Part I would rather be watching a movie I haven't seen before. So, it's just I'll try to get around to these things. But anyway, Alex Garland's a talented guy. So yeah, I was really excited about this even before there was any footage or anything out. You know, this has always been something that I guess you could relate it to a zombie apocalypse, something like The Walking Dead, where society breaks down, where the rule of law is not what people operate by. They more or less operate by the rules of the jungle and Darwinism, and the strong will survive kind of brutality. And that's always terrified me personally. I think this premise is eh, perfect in the sense that it's a horror movie, but something that could happen, has happened in many countries, and is certainly something I never want to live through, never want to even begin approaching. It's an utterly terrifying reality. And this movie, look, in the hands of a competent artist, a competent filmmaker like Alex Garland, I can say Civil War, it just was executed so well. You have to kind of pick and choose the type of story you're going to tell. You know, I've seen complaints and whatever. We'll get there. We'll get to some of the other reviewers and what they had to say about it. But, you know, he made some pretty key choices here in terms of focusing the story on the journalists, focusing on Kirsten Dunst, focusing on what's her face from the Elvis movie, Kaylee I'm gonna fuck her name up if I don't look it up here. Give me a second. Um, God, this cast is fucking huge. Yeah, Kaylee Spaney. Yeah, I think that's how you name it. Kaylee Spaney. Focusing on the annoying Hispanic guy, Wagner Mora. Yeah, he's probably the only drag on this movie. I'll say in terms of the characters and acting, he really got on my nerves. He was really irritating. But that's I mean, other than that, I thought the cast was pretty good. Um, you know, you this assortment of journalists and characters who are heading to Washington D.C. to interview the president. Um, you know, before July 4th, where it's expected there's going to be this big confrontation, battle, etc. And so, you know, these journalists pile into a van. You know, and this is after a pretty devastating firefight and bombing in New York City to open the movie. So just and I can't really say enough about the action scenes, the violence, the gunshots, the explosions. They're harrowing. They're to sit in a theater and be affected by that. It was on my mind for hours after into today. Just sitting in that theater and feeling those things that happen and occur, and it it was surreal and how realistic it felt. It was pretty disturbing, I'm not gonna lie, and as a movie, it was just incredibly effective. So, yeah, I really can't say enough about, you know, go see this movie, go experience you know, experience the atmosphere and the sort of tonal mood that's created here. It's unnerving, it's disturbing, and as a movie experience, I really can't recommend it more. But yeah, it's a movie that focuses on the journalists. It focuses on telling the story through their camera lens, you know, running into areas that everybody else is running away from. You know, they are I think the movie it does not make them out to be, you know, patting themselves on the back. It doesn't um it doesn't have this sort of narcissistic navel gazing sensibility that, for instance, Steven Spielberg's The Post had, or even Spotlight, you know, the journalistic movie that Mark Ruffalo was in that won Best Picture, I think in like 2015. Just it's like, okay, we get it. We get it how important journalists are, but you never feel that in this. These are people that, you know, they're talented at their job. I think they're certainly the eyes and the perspective of the audience where they don't have, you know, they don't have any tribalistic interests here. They have no ideological interests. They're not political. They're there to take pictures, to take in what is going on through as honest a framing as you can possibly uh, comprehend, as you can possibly grasp. That's, you know, that's what their job is. And it's while bullets are flying all around them. It's where explosives are going off in, you know, in their vicinity. And, you know, that's the sort of like insane but almost heroic sense of their occupation. And again, these are not corporate journalists. These are not people with cushy jobs or in offices, or they're there on the ground, much in the sensibility, you know, the historic tradition of war zone correspondence. People, you know, they made a whole series of these movies, in fact, in the 1980s, you know, and these people have died. These people have risked genuinely risked their lives to cover these things. In foreign countries like Syria, I mean, these people get disappeared. They get eliminated. So and that is kind of the atmosphere, that's the kind of the world that we're dealing with here. The entire interstate, I'm assuming I-95 has been shut down. So it takes a lot longer to get from point A to point B. And that's the kind of thing I sort of figured out for myself, because it was like, wait a minute, it's not 500 miles from New York City to Washington, DC. There's no way. And it was just like, oh, it's because they have to go through back roads and traverse through who knows what to just to get to their destination. So that actually makes sense. But there are gripes are about this movie in terms of how much they explain, kind of where they drop the audience in at, where it ends up. There are things that aren't very clear. It's a very foggy kind of composition. And I've heard this on kind of both sides of the supposed culture war, movie critics who identify politically left or right, and look, I like to hear all sides of how people digest a movie, what their perspective is, what they think. I'm just always going to be a bit vociferous with my opinion, especially if it's in the minority, which again, I think most people who watch Civil War will really like it. I think it has dynamic action that keeps your attention for almost 2 hours. It's an hour and 53 minutes. It's never dull, it never drops off. It's exactly the opposite of what a political or ideologically driven movie is. Um, I think the acting is good. I will say that the characters themselves are not I they didn't entirely win me over with the characters. They're kind of they're a bit kind of like outlines, Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney and the annoying Hispanic guy whose name I've just forgot. You know what I mean? Like even the learned older black sage journalist, who's been in a million movies the last 5 to 10 years, whose name I don't know. He's not even in the main cast. Stephen McKinley Henderson, So like the kindly older black gentleman, So eh, they're kind of thin in terms of their character depth and how memorable I suppose they are, but while the movie is going on, they fit very much in the composition of the events. It works. It works with them as the characters driving the plot forward. It's very much a road movie. It's very much, we're all in this together. We don't have many resources. Gas is hard to come by, and even when we find it, it's guarded by men with what I assume are at least semi-automatic rifles, if not, something fully automatic or even something, more powerful than an AR-15, just to take an example. So it's something that like there are, I think, a few moments where you'll have a lull, but I just think that that's Garland pacing out the movie and not making everything so breakneck in terms of its pacing. But there are various moments throughout. There's definitely a handful of moments that startle, that shock, that get your attention. He very much grabs the audience by the lapels and smacks them around a bit. And I look again, I enjoy that kind of thing. I that's why I go to the movies. I go to the movies for these kinds of stories, for these like, yes, I'm gonna go there. I'm going to present something that seems horrifying and nightmarish and to a degree far-fetched, but could very much be a reality and has been a reality at different times throughout history in many different countries. So, and I don't want to keep repeating myself with that, but it's just taking into consideration that it's a horror movie in a sense. Really, it's an exploitation movie that's made on kind of a big scale. I think this movie had I will look it up here in a second, but I think it had close to $100 million budget. It might have only been 75 or 80, but I remember that because it was a headline. A24, who released the movie, had never spent that much on a film. So I just think it's interesting they took a gamble with this because again, Alex Garland is not exactly like he's been a box office darling in his career. So it's somewhat surprising. I just want to check this out real quick to see what the budget was. Okay, so it was 50,000,000. Okay, so maybe I just overestimated it, or maybe the report did, um, that I saw, but no, I'll take the blame for getting that wrong. But yeah, no, it's everything I'm looking at here. Okay, see now okay, well, maybe it's my fault for following, World of Real, because now I see where I got the $75,000,000 budget from. Yeah, 1 second here. But yeah, it's, just trying to get my screen up. Um, it surprised me they spent that much money on it, with his track record, with how audacious some of the scenes are, some of the set pieces, just some of the things that they were able to bring to life through CGI, I would have to assume, but pretty damn good CGI. Just excuse me, 1 second here, just getting this article pulled up. Just some of the scenes were just absolutely exceptional, with the helicopters and gunfire. So 1 second here, working with half a screen. Okay, so and I mean, to be fair to Jordan Rumi here, this came out, I don't know, 4 months ago. So, yeah, and I mean, obviously, I don't know his sourcing here, but $75,000,000, yeah, mentions that Men was a bust. And yeah, I mean, he's basically calling for A24 to keep spending money. Yeah, I mean, Beau is Afraid was 35,000,000. And obviously that was a gigantic failure at the at the box office, but I obviously I was a fan of it. Um but yeah, it's look, I I'm all for taking risks. I'm all for putting your money where your mouth is. If you believe in a vision, if you believe in a filmmaker and what they want to make, and hey, go for it. But it's your ass if it doesn't work out. So, and we're at a point where audiences have been force fed Marvel property and IP garbage and just a sort of deluge of crap. And I don't know. Sometimes I want to make fun of audiences and just kind of mock them, but sometimes they surprise me. Sometimes, you know, we're on the same page. And I think Civil War is tracking to make about $25,000,000 this weekend, which is pretty good. Um, you know, I can't really say enough about the the lens of the camera, the sort of consistent snapping, the constant taking of photographs, almost matching, the rapidity of the gunfire. And just, n- I don't want the metaphor, I guess, to be that heavy-handed, but it's true that in both, that photographers share something in common with the people also at war, in the sense that, you know, you can go at any time. It's just, one is there to fight and one isn't. But that doesn't lessen the risk, that doesn't lessen the circumstances, and I without being pompous, without being sanctimonious, I do think that Alex Garland presented something where showed the importance of journalism, showed, the more we head towards something that's unsettling or divisive or tribal, the more we're going to need people that, are sort of willing to do that and risk their necks to bring people stories, what happened, et cetera. You know what I mean? So I don't I don't think that that was misguided or pompous or, annoying in any way. I mean, if you just go into this hating journalists, I get it. Especially over the last decade and, the 2016 election, how Trump was covered, 2020, et cetera. I mean, I get it. I understand. I think it's I mean, while never really being a Republican or a conservative, the fact that Democrats ran on nothing, the fact that the media acted the way it did, that in itself plays a role in this movie. The fact that, like, everybody and their mother wanted to call Trump and has called Trump a fascist. And in this movie, right, we see what an actual fascist looks like. We see what a real authoritarian looks like. And guess what? It's nothing like Donald Trump. It's nothing like his presidency. And that's the irony of all of this, is that you have all these people who want it to be some kind of bloodlust statement of righteous political indignation, and it's not. It's a nuanced view of the humans at the center of the conflict that's going on. It doesn't explain how it started. You do see the ending of it, but you definitely get the sense that, the president and his fascist military state, whatever, is not, remotely the good guy. You know what I mean? Even if the Western forces themselves, the opposition, the rebellion, if you will, aren't. I mean, there's nothing really that makes them good either. They just, they just end up opposing something that is inherently evil. So I think that the movie, more like all good art, yeah, it has more questions than answers. It's not about providing, you know, every single solution to the problems it presents. It's not going to have a tidy up resolution for every single thing that gets presented. I like that, because it reflects how life is. We don't get resolution. We don't get an answer. We don't get that. Life is not comforting. And frankly, great art, especially cinematic art, you know, it should be difficult. It should be hard. It should be, it should be a little unsatisfying, because that reflects the human condition. I like that. I do. I like it a lot. And there's style out the ass in this movie. The performances are solid, even if I think the characters don't have that much depth to them. Um, I thought the writing was fairly solid. I mean, I've seen some reactions on Twitter like that the dialogue was terrible. I was like, I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, it's you're in a kind of a brave new world of we're never going to recover from this, are we? We're never Things are never going to be the same after this, even if it gets resolved, which it does. But and it's a haunting reminder of what is possible. And I it's also something I'm so grateful for, in the sense that we've never experienced this, and I never want to. That's how awful, harrowing, terrifying this movie is. That the reality it presents feels so unbelievably nightmarishly realistic, that it's like, okay, it's like you don't understand the level of sacrifice and terror and just, you know, actual generational trauma. I mean, people use that fucking bullshit phrase, generational trauma. No, that's literally, you want to traumatize your children and grandchildren. Yeah, that's exactly how you would do that. So, and I just think that Alex Garland did a great job bringing it to life. I thought he presented a nuanced, view of war being hell, being an absolute terrifying reality. Um, you know, I do think, like I said, the one character annoyed the shit out of me. Played by Wagner Moura, who played Joel. Just some of his moments, some of his scenes kind of just grated, against me, and some of his lines were not great. So maybe you can chalk that up against Alex Garland, who wrote the script. But I do think it's probably the best movie of 2024. I did like Dune Part 2 to some degree. You know what I mean? I don't think it was a total wash. But I still only gave it a 3 out of 5. So that's not yeah, it's I would probably put Civil War with I mean, I hate to say it, but Love Lies Bleeding is probably the second best movie I've seen in theaters this year. So, you know, um I guess it just doesn't take much. I mean, we're back in 2022 territory where we had Vengeance and Blonde as like the best movies of that year for me. So, but yeah, I can't recommend this movie anymore in terms of like going to the movies, having like this a visceral experience and reaction to what is happening on screen. I'm remiss to say it's a lot of fun. I feel bad saying that, but in terms of like an engaging cinematic experience, no, it's an incredibly like entertaining, engaging, thought-provoking kind of movie. And it's disturbing and it's fucked up. And again, just the way it puts these things into perspective as a reality is just utterly terrifying. So go see it, man. I recommend it. I think it's good. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Might be a little high, if I go see it again. I think I'm gonna go see it again on Sunday. And that'll give me a little bit more of a you know, concrete foothold on, if I was right in my reaction or if it needs to come down a little bit. But I am definitely going to be reviewing it on the Barroom podcast over at Society Review. So please check that out on Tuesday at 9 o'clock Eastern. I believe so. I believe Jacob is going to see it or has seen it, excuse me. And Rick is seeing it on Monday. So at the very least, the three of us will give our extended thoughts on it over there at that time and date. So yeah, check it out. um, but yeah, no, I just had such a good time watching this fucking movie and like just and I have talked about it already, but some of the gunshots, some of the explosions were just like jolted me out of my seat. And not that I was like asleep or anything, but just and I didn't see it in IMAX or anything. Like I think I'm gonna go if I go see it this weekend, I think I'm gonna go see it in IMAX just to get the full experience of it and appreciation. But one of the my one of my big rules for filmmaking in terms of making something that is memorable, standing the test of time, all of that, right? All the important qualifiers you need for a great movie. It really comes down to atmosphere. It comes down to the filmmaker creating a world, a lived in world where the characters, the events, uh, just everything that's happening in front of the camera feels tactile, feels idiosyncratic, feels lived in a sense where you can almost feel the texture of it, that kind of detail. And I definitely think that Garland does that here with Civil War. Some of the handheld shots are just so incredible. Compositions. I mean, there's the scene with Jesse Plemons' character, which you've seen bits and pieces if you've seen the trailer. You know what I'm talking about. That scene, and so spoilers here if you haven't seen it, and just whatever. There's an entire mass grave of civilian bodies, and I mean like hundreds of bodies, and it's just this movie would make a troubling double feat. What is it? Troubling and yeah, it would make a great double feature with The Zone of Interest, basically. Instructive. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah, no, it's just both those movies are fucked up and disturbing. I mean, I guess supposedly like on different levels for sure, but just some of the moments in Civil War just are jaw-dropping, frankly. So check it out. Go out to see it. Yeah, it's a 4 out of 5 for me. I'm probably gonna go try to go see it again on Sunday. So again, check out the Barroom Podcast Tuesday over at Society Reviews here on YouTube, Twitter, etc. Follow me on my Twitter there. So that's pretty much my review of it. You know, I liked it a lot. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Now, I kind of want to engage further on this movie, on Civil War, by going through some reviews of it, and we're gonna start with Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, so you know, I know people both use Rotten Tomatoes as a marker for quality. Excuse me, and it's always a mistake, but it's also good to use just as a roundup, to access the reviews of critics all in one place. So I always like it for that because it gives me more perspective than just whether someone liked it or didn't. So we will get our screen up here. All right. There's Kaylee. All right. So pretty favorable, both tomato meter and audience score. Basically, they're identical. Okay. So, you know, we're just going to take a look here. All right. Let's start here with the New York Post critic who, yeah. How about instead of torturing viewers with a parade of point blank executions, Garland try making a well executed film? I mean, the lack of grammar there is kind of fantastic. I just like pointing that out from a publication. I mean, it is the New York Post, so it is what it is. I was actually just reading about them because Woody Allen trashed them. Apparently, I'm reading his memoir right now. So, all right, let's see here. AARP. Ooh, the film never is daring or nuanced, which is hilarious. It's if anything, it is nuanced. As it needs to be, rests uneasily between Oliver Stone's provocative war correspondent movie Salvador and Gerard Butler's ballistic blockbuster Olympus Has Fallen. Oh, Jesus Christ. See, these are the kind of brain dead takes that I'm talking about. Olympus Has Fallen is like an utterly, pardon my language, a retarded action movie. You know what I mean? Like on the level of the Fast and the Furious, but not nearly as big of a budget. But that kind of just ridiculous level of production. You know what I mean? So I personally don't understand something like that. But again, it's just I think a lot of critics. This is something I learned a couple years ago. A lot of critics view themselves as journalists. I, I mean, I was blown away when I found this out because I don't know what kind of pretzel you have to twist yourself into, or like the mental gymnastics that you have to go through to genuinely believe that they are even remotely related. I mean, I guess they both appear in the newspaper, but the arts and leisure section is not exactly the front page. Just saying. Uh so I don't know. I mean, genuinely, it's. I mean, yes, of course, it's possible that these people just didn't like the movie. It's fine. I mean, I just thought it was a fascinating look at something that was provocative and at a time when, oh my god, how fucking political is everything. It chose not to go there. I mean, it shows it had all the restraint in the world to basically say, no, fuck you. It's about the human characters at the center of these things, at the center of these conflicts that bring us, these frontline images and stories and things that nobody else could have gotten. So and that's the other part is Salvador, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I like James Woods in that movie. He's good. I think Salvador is a solid movie, but it's nowhere near as like provocative or as exciting or as interesting as like this movie subject matter is. It might be more well respected in an artistic sense, but because it's not a sci-fi dystopian, you know, basically glorified exploitation movie, fine, but that's the kind of snobbery I can't stand because there's Pauline Kael decided this years ago with High and Low in terms of art. You can have, high-minded art that explores complex emotions and thoughts and perspectives, etc. And you can have trash that's incredibly uh that makes someone in the audience make feel incredibly alive and is vital and is hilarious and memorable, and that's where we get cult classics from, and things like, things like Paul Verhoeven movies, where we get this elevated form of satire, where it becomes something else. So again, I'm all for, you know, filmmakers, artists doing what they think is interesting, what they want to execute on the movie screen. But, there's no at the end of the day, there's no guarantee it's going to be good. And that's why I am all for taking risks. I'm all for taking risks because it's just once you've had that opportunity and it doesn't work out, it's really hard to go back to the table and be like, "Hey, give me more money to fail again." So yeah, I mean, we'll see how Civil War does ultimately at the box office. I think audiences ultimately are going to like it more than critics will. But right now, and I don't know that it's going to change that much. It's it's pretty even. So we'll continue going through here. I'm getting parched. I mean, and this is the sort of the downside of not having anybody on or a co-host or anything because, you know, I'm the only one talking and I need to hydrate. Yeah, I mean, there's just such a dishonest engagement with this movie. I've seen zombie movies engage in social issues and politics more rigorously than this. Yeah, I mean, if you want to read a political message into Dawn of the Dead, I think you're a fucking idiot, but it's your right. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's incredibly stupid. Justin Chang has me blocked on Twitter. The more arresting its doomsday images, the more Garland's war loses itself in a nonpartisan fog, a thought experiment that short circuits thought. I mean, I will agree that there is a fogginess to the events and the sides, and but that adds to the atmosphere. That adds to sort of the terror and the uncertainty of the moment. I don't understand how that would be a negative, but again, it's journalists who are mad that a movie wasn't political, that it didn't beat its audience over the head with platitudes and had its main characters be, automatons. I mean, seriously, this is the modern movie critic. And I mean, to be fair, these people are in the minority because the majority of critics gave it a favorable review. I mean, and we'll look at the quality of the favorable reviews. I mean, 3 out of 5 is rotten. Okay, whatever. I mean, I okay. So I'm trying not to read everybody's here, but go to all of them here. Whatever the fuck top critic means. And I mean, obviously, you can read for yourself here what's on here, but here's the what New York Magazine. It's more a call for reflection, an attempt to put us in the shoes of others than a warning. Yeah, I mean, again, that's seemingly a lukewarm positive review. Peter Travers. I mean, it's funny that of all the critics I've read so far, Peter Travers is probably the one I agree with most, which is probably not a good thing, otherwise. But In a hotly divisive post January 6th election year, Alex Garland embeds us with journalists led by a wow Kirsten Dunst covering a speculative second war between the states. The result is the most original and propulsively exciting movie of the year so far. That I mean, that's really what everything else is kind of like whatever. But it's such a worthwhile theater watch that I really can't recommend it more. It's a lot of Okay. It's not a lot of fun, I don't wanna say that, but it is an engaging watch in a movie theater for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people could get something so wrong, and I'm reminded that these people are paid to do this for a living. I mean, I'm not sure how well, but I do find that fascinating. I find it fascinating that it alienated both people on the left and the right politically, people who for better or worse, have gotten into political writing more or less in the last 8 years. I mean, I see things by Duralde I mean, I don't know if he still writes for The Wrap, but I see their shit being political, from time to time. Y you see the National Review, you see I mean, these outlets that basically are like, okay, or, Armand White is another one. All right, here's the ringer. Civil War, which is simultaneously pedantic and frictionless, feels weirdly like a movie of the moment that won't last. A victory lap around an observation that was already made by Axl Rose. Yeah, I mean, I do think that this is going to be a movie that's revisited. I do think it's going to be something that is, I mean, remembered. I mean, especially if Alex Garland is retiring from filmmaking, this might be his best movie. I mean, you could have a personal favorite or just think I'm wrong, I suppose, but I do think this is his most complete, daring, audacious vision of a hellacious, not too distant future. Absolutely. Wall Street Journal. This is mindless fantasy, not modern commentary. Civil War is superficially silly, but it's also deeply silly. The statement movie that contains no insights at all. And that's just not true. I mean, you would have to be objectively dishonest to have that takeaway. Not to mention emotionally retarded, like having no intelligent capacity whatsoever. So that's kind of what I find interesting is that you would write that knowing that people are going to see this movie and then be like, "Oh, so like did you lie or are you that fucking stupid?" I mean, it could be either one, you know what I mean? Like it's it's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. Yep. See, Manola Dargis, New York Times. It's morning again in America and it's mesmerizingly horribly gripping. Yes. And it's like it should be haunting because it should be reminiscent of something that is possible, something that can happen, but while still remaining a movie and being entertainment and being something that, takes you along for that, uh, you know, I don't want to say ride because that gives credence to some fucking like theme park thing, which it's not, you know what I mean? But just very much in the classic sensibility of cinematic filmmaking, taking taking you off into, a world that is terrifying. Garland's dystopian supposition shows us that in a nation when citizens take up arms against each other, it is everyone who fails. Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, we get it. We get it. Fucking San Jose Mercury News. We get it, you fucking hippie. Richard Lawson, Vanity Fair. Civil War's skittishness toward real world illusion might be more tolerable, if still frustrating, had the film at least fleshed out its characters. Yeah, I mean, and that's actually something that I would agree with, because in the sense that the characters are not the strong suit of the movie. Um, and it kind of plays a bit it does play a little bit fast and loose with that aspect because they do kind of carry it. They are the ones on the road getting from point A to point B. They're the ones in danger. They're the ones capturing these firefights, these conflicts, warfare, etc. And, you know, it's I they don't matter necessarily as much as they should. Um, I and even if they did, I suppose it would be a different movie or it would be longer. I don't know in any world where I would give this a 5 out of 5, you know what I mean? But that was definitely what I took points off for, as well as just the one, the guy who played I'm gonna forget his name now. Yeah, the guy who played Joel, was just he was very annoying. Okay, so just and it was fine. I was able to see past that because again, the movie was engaging. It has a momentum. It has a pacing that just kind of moves things along. So and the more movies you make as a filmmaker, the better you sort of get at that. At editing, at pacing, at putting those things together, and making sure the story doesn't drag. You know, Garland Sharpest, most visionary rendering yet of the world gone wrong. Mm. It's one of the best movies of the year, and among journalists, at least it should be one of the most talked about. I agree. This is a lean, cruel film about the ethics of photographing violence, a predicament any one of us could be in if we have a smartphone in our hand during a crisis. Civil War is also a great film and an exceptional war movie. Alex Garland has bounced back from the navel-gazing idiocy of men to deliver a drama of unparalleled intensity and filmmaking ambition. Civil War takes what many whisper about in these divisive, polarizing times and turns it into a smartly crafted, suspenseful, propulsive thriller that manages to make a statement without tipping Garland's political hand too much. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing is that, Alex Garland, for all intents and purposes, is probably a liberal. Um, but I think he's smart enough to know that, like, hey, I'm not going to do the obvious stupid thing and make an ideological screed that Hollywood's going to pat me on the back for and that everyone else is going to despise me for. And honestly, like, if you know his movies, if you know the world he sort of occupies as a filmmaker, I'm surprised anybody was expecting a sort of like bloodlust, drag 'em out, dogfight of a, dystopian red state, blue state thing. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. Are you children? Are you fucking children? I'm looking at you right now at the fucking camera. Are you fucking children? Are you fucking stupid? Are you that okay? Apparently you're that stupid. So to just that's where I was with this whole thing. I was like, I bet you it's gonna be fucking good. I bet you it's gonna be nuanced. I bet it's gonna speak to the human experience and not some fucking political ideological nonsense. Hey, I was right. Look at that. So and look, you can have issues with the movie that it doesn't explain enough. It doesn't go into detail. And that's fine. I would just counter with it's not that kind of movie. That's not what movie it is. So, and to be fair, you are supposed to judge a movie by what it inherently is. This is a road technically it's a road movie. It's a dystopian sci-fi thing, but it's a road movie going from New York City to Washington DC with one goal in mind. And lots of shit happens along the way. That's it in a nutshell. But it is so well crafted. It is so well executed by Garland. You know, I It's not a perfect movie. It's got flaws. It's got some issues, absolutely. And, opinionated movie lovers will have all kinds of things to say about it. But this is what, you know, whether you like it or not, this is what well-made movies do. They spark discussion. They spark discourse. This is what movie criticism is supposed to be. It's supposed to be people bickering at each other, bitching at one another, fighting with one another. I mean, not really fighting, but just going to bat for what you think, for going to bat for your experience. You know what I mean? Because you don't have to act like a fucking child. You don't have to act like a big fucking baby. You can articulate why you're passionate about this movie, these characters. Uh, Maybe not here, characters weren't a strong suit, but what you love so much about the movie, whatever it is. I'm just talking in generalizations here, but that's what's interesting. Now, I have a pretty high bar. Ha- you know, I think that the principles that I value matter, and not a whole lot of people really care about that shit, frankly. They just wanna be entertained, just wanna have a good time. They just want, um, almost wanna say escape from the everyday, and it's like, well, this is kind of a reminder of the everyday, but no, I thought, it was a pretty clever, cool variation on, what could happen potentially. And so, you know, I'm I love having those discussions. I love having passionate discussions about movies. The truth is that most modern movies do not elicit that reaction. And even movies that are just okay or even slightly above average, they're just kind of like, yeah, and you'll forget about it. You won't remember it again. You'll never be like, oh, hey, let's watch that movie. Why? I'd rather rewatch something that's great, than a forgettable, piece of crap. So it's it's harder and harder to kind of feel like this after you've gone to the movie theater, where you feel engaged by something, where you're still thinking about it the next day. And I'll be honest, Dune Part 2 had that effect on me too. I don't think it is nearly as good of a movie as Civil War, frankly. But both movies definitely had me thinking about things far after the credits were rolling. So, um, it's such a rarity nowadays. It's something that just doesn't happen anymore. And so I hope the rest of 2024 is good, that we get maybe 4 or 5 more movies that are as good as Civil War, but I don't have I don't have hope for that. 2023 was a very good year. It was the best year we had since 2019. And you know, I don't think we're gonna have it for a while. I don't think we're gonna have a year like that where you had a dozen movies, arguably, that you'd be like, this one's really good, that one's really good, that one's really good, and just having that experience, being like, hey, there are movies worth talking about, worth exploring, worth discussing. That kind of discourse is exciting. That's why I wanted to become a movie critic. It's needing to share how I see things, I view this, how it impacts me. Um, Doing it because you feel like you have to, not because you necessarily even want to. You know, you do because it's a passionate thing, but it's like, it occupies so much time as well. Um, so I I don't have high hopes for the rest of the year. I don't, but I did think that this was a real fucking kick ass first really good movie to sort of start 2024. I know it's what, the middle of April? Not quite. And I'm saying that, the first really good movie of the year. Yeah, I know. But I try to be optimistic, I try to be hopeful. I try to put my best foot forward. When I started doing the weekly movie reviews with Society Reviews and Rick, uh the first movie was like the third Jurassic World. What was it? Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom? Is that it? I don't know. I can't I don't remember, and I'm not gonna look it up. But so and when was that? That was like June of 2022. Yeah, so I've been doing that for about 2 years now, 2 solid years, and there's been very few movie reviews that were positive. So I hope it gets better. I not optimistic about it, but we'll see. We got the bike riders coming up. We got Hitman, which Glenn Powell, who is now like in everything. I just don't I really don't get it. I mean, I know they were pushing him for a while there. I mean, I remember that airplane movie he was in, not the Top Gun movie, but the one with Jonathan Majors. Just it just felt like they were pushing him way too hard. And then, Anybody But You hit, and he's in the Twisters movie, and he's in this Richard Linklater Hitman movie Netflix is putting out in June, which I'm looking forward to because I've heard really good things about it at the film festivals it premiered at last year. You got Jeff Nichols, the Bike Riders. Not a whole lot else I'm too excited about. I mean, Challengers is coming out soon. Zendaya and two guys. I don't know. Luca Guadagnino is directing it, so I'm sure it'll be stylish and sexy and whatever. But it's like, I mean, I don't like to pick on Zendaya because I don't think she's as ugly as everybody else thinks she is. But she's making a move to be whatever consists of a leading lady in the modern day sense. So we will see how that works out. I did think she was very good in Dune Part 2. I did. Whatever. I mean, that seems to be a divisive opinion, and I'm like, I don't think that's that divisive. I thought she was objectively good in the movie, but I haven't read the books. I don't have big opinions or strong opinions about it. It's just from what I saw, that was my takeaway. But um yeah, I'm hopeful Francis Ford Coppola gets Megalopolis released to somebody who will put it out. I keep hearing that, uh, he's not finding anybody to take it to do that. So that's always troubling to hear. Just because it's a passion project of his, and he put up all that money to get it made, and now his wife just passed away today. Broke 20 minutes before I came on here. So rest in peace, Eleanor Coppola. But so I hope that works out for him. No, he's put a lot into that movie. But yeah, guys, thank you for coming by. I kind of wish I had more to talk about because I feel like I'm not really on a roll, but I'm just like I'm here, so like let's keep it going. But um, and I need to do a weekly podcast just because there's always things I want to talk about. I just have to be better at organizing it and putting it together, as well as getting the show produced and having an intro and outro, all those things, like I said at the beginning. But um, yeah, no, I'll have to come on more and do movie reviews and just cover movie news and stuff, and kind of just give my thoughts in general because I like doing it. It's fun. It's just um I'm real bad at scheduling stuff and being consistent in that regard in my creative endeavors, but uh now that I've gotten a job and started working, gonna start kind of putting my effort towards that a little bit more. So it's at the very least a bit more consistent. So still got to get through my movie library. Um I definitely want to do movie night, like uh movie nights like on Rumble where we can actually like watch movies and pause and shit and talk about it, and just to have a good time in that regard. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to actually getting the now 8 reviews that I need to write for movies released in 2024, going all the way back to Drive Away Dolls. So lots of terrible shit to write about, but you can always look for those on my Twitter, which is Rob Motto Movies, because my original account is still suspended. I don't know if I'm ever going to get it back. So that is what it is. But final thoughts here. Yeah, Civil War. Just disturbing, haunting, uh, troubling, you know, not a movie I'm gonna forget anytime soon, unsettling, and, yeah, I'm at a loss for words, honestly, at a certain point, just because so many of the scenes depicted are surreal and in a nightmarish capacity. So again, v very effective, very without sounding trite in terms of scary, it yes, a very scary reality sort of brought to life there, on the movie screen. So go see it. Uh, First very good movie of 2024. So anyway, you guys take it easy. I don't know. It's the weekend. Go drink something or smoke something or eat something you shouldn't eat. Yeah. Okay. Bye.